G'day everyone. For those who came in late, you're listening to Expand, the Phantom Podcast.
Years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die. The Phantom, the ghost who walks. The Phantom, enemies beware. The Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom.
G'day, we are the Chronicle Chamber team, and this is Expand, the Phantom Podcast. Our website is chroniclechamber.com, and you can contact us via email, chroniclechamber@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to us via YouTube, iTunes, or your many Android apps. This is episode 202. It's our October 2021 Comics and News podcast. We've got a great show ahead, ready and raring for you. We've got all the team here. G'day, Dan. How are you going?
Yeah, good, Steve. Very happy to be back. I feel like I've missed a couple, actually, and it's only been episode 200, but just because it's been released since last time we spoke and I started listening to that, I'm filthy that I missed it. But I'll tell you what, it did give me pause, and I know listeners will have just heard it. The Sammy J song is our intro song. I just want to give that another thumbs up. 200 podcasts, probably 100 of them have had Sammy J's song as the intro, and I still love it. So I hope everyone else does too.
G'day, Jerm. How you going?
Yeah, good, mate. Tired after travelling about 1,000 k's to pick up a silly dog.
Yeah, talking about commutes.
Yeah. Very tired. So hopefully this podcast doesn't go too late, because otherwise it might be me that falls asleep instead of you, Stephen.
And I'm 3 hours ahead of you, aren't I, nowadays? With the time saving.
Yep.
Yeah. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. So we've had a few comics released since our last Comics and News podcast. First one up is 1902. This is, of course, Frew, 1902, which is Nest of the Undead by Pidde, Andersson and Joan Boix. And it's backed up with Riddle of the Grey Malkin, Part 4 by Glenn Lumsden and Jason Paulos. With a cover, of course, by Jason Paulos, who I think this came out just around about the same time we interviewed Jason, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
We all had this in our hands when we were speaking with him. So it's been a while, but since it came out. But Dan, any comments on this story?
Yeah, I guess while we start with the cover that, as you said, Jason Paulos, and it's a really dynamic cover. It's a very Dracula vampire cover with the crucifix in the Phantom's hand and the launching fanged vampire, which may be a little misleading in terms of that's not quite the content of the story, but it's a ripping vampire image nonetheless.
And then, of course, don't forget the back covers done by Joan himself as well.
Yeah, and wasn't that back cover, that was the cover for it in Phantomen?
No, this is a Frew created story. Although in reading it, you probably wouldn't. You would probably think that it was a Team Phantom Men created story, but it's actually a Frew created story. One of the ways you can usually tell is if you look down the bottom on page 3, it does not say first published in Phantom Men, 2020 or something like that. But it does read like a Team Phantom Men story, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and I guess because it's a European creative team, like Pidde Andersson is Scandinavian, Swedish, and Joan from Spain, of course. I thought that was actually a really interesting mix because Joan Boix's art is very familiar to us and has been around from Team Phantom Stories for a long, long time. Pidde Andersson, a brand new author, and the modern writing with that more familiar and traditional art, for want of a better term. I found that an interesting mix sometimes, a bit unexpected.
I like the mix, and I see where you're coming from with Team Phantom. It was like a good Team Phantom story. I enjoyed this one.
I did as well. It's the second time that these two have combined for a Frew created Phantom story as well. The last one was, I can't remember the name, but it was about the cannibals.
Yep, in Scotland.
Yeah. Bay, I think their last name was. But I enjoyed the story. For me, it had the right element of fantasy elements. Like at the end, it's kind of like, where, like, was the guy dead or was he not dead? And it just kind of left it at that. I kind of like that.
It plays up the same tropes as the Phantom does,
Yeah. And there's on page 26 there. For me, it was the right mixture of fantasy. That fantasy element, really not sure of it. I wouldn't want it to go kind of like two more where you see in the background him flying away as a flying Dracula or something like that. That's probably too far. But yeah, for me, I was happy with it. I enjoyed the story. The action was good. Sometimes I get annoyed where, like they're fighting against each other, but that they remain very civil and like you stick to your castle, I'll stick to over here. But in this time, the bad guys went straight. First night when the Phantom rocked up, and it was kind of like they're not pulling any punches, they're not mucking around. This is serious, and I kind of like that, and because people are dying, people are getting injured and stuff like that. This is a serious story. When they're not mucking around, the bad guys shouldn't be mucking around either. They're not pulling their punches; they're going straight for the jugular, and I did like that.
I 100% agree. Jen, like it is a lot of it's a very serious story. There's a lot of death. These guys are bad guys playing off a myth, or because of the artwork, keeping the characterization the same for the Blood, the Impaler character, and that as you said at the end, just that hint that maybe he really is. I thought that was all really cool. The fact that the bad guys came in so heavy-handed, you're exactly right. That's what they would have done. That's what they should have done. And that's where I thought of you, Steve, when I read through page 18 in particular, because that was the moment the bad guys came at the Phantom, and he came back at them in a disastrous way and like such a foolhardy way. And I thought, well, that's that moment aside where the Phantom's going, oh, they've attacked me, I'm going to run out in my bare-chested glasses into Walker guys and get shot in the head because I'm just running straight into danger. Other than that, falling so quickly for their trap. But other than that, I thought it was really well written. So,
yeah.
So on page 17, you will notice that the Phantom's actually in bed, half asleep with his glasses on.
Yeah.
Just in case the maid or someone comes in.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just a little. I don't know. It's just a little bit. That's probably
Oh no! Look, the candles. He's sitting up reading in bed, I guess.
Yeah, the door's open. He's gone up and
candles on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Give him the benefit of the
glasses on.
But straight away he decides to. I've nearly been assassinated by someone who's hypnotized. Maybe I should run headlong into the front yard, exactly as I am.
Yeah.
But look, I'm being critical, but the rest of the story I really enjoyed. And even that, there's no deal breaker, that's for sure.
No. And when he does sit up and goes to the castle, he's quite heavy-handed himself.
He is.
Putting a gun straight at somebody's head, and then, of course, doing the old getting somebody on the back of the head with his pistol. So just getting his own back on that one.
It's good to see it's good to see the Phantom not getting knocked on the head for once.
Oh, it's refreshing. Then followed up with a quick skull mark to the jaw.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked how it resolved itself rather quickly as well. It was one of those. It was a quick, fun read in the sense that sometimes you get a Phantom story, and it's a real heavy, real drag, and it's like you almost got to go, oh, I got to really focus, really concentrate in here. But I read this and it's like, oh, this is fun, and you're just flipping through it, and then it's like, oh, it's finished. Oh, that was a good 10, 20, 30 minutes, however long it takes you. That was a good time spent. That was a good escapism, whether it's like Stephen, you told us before, sometimes the only time you get to read these when you got kids and all that is on the dunny and stuff like that. And it's,
well, I actually don't read a Phantom comic on there.
But it's a good, fun, quick, enjoyable, don't have to think much escapism. And sometimes I like that, a lot of the time I like that in my Phantom stories. And then, so it was good. I really enjoyed it.
It was a really well-paced comic, like you said.
Yeah.
Okay. So part 4 and part 5 are the backups to both of these issues, 1902 and 1903. And we see that the Malkin has... Oh, no, I nearly got ahead of myself. I was about to say that the Malkin's been taken to town, but no, they're still in the bush, still in the forest there in the first one. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Where
part 4.
Part 4.
Part 4 is they're still in the jungle, and it finishes with the actress accidentally, really, kidnapping a Malkin and taking it back with her when she gets on the boat bound for New York City. So prior to that, it is a good fun jungle romp with the Phantom, having to dodge crocodiles and save the damsel in distress, and there's wild dogs, hyenas, and that sort of thing. It's again a really fun little 8 pages, I reckon.
Was this the one where she got doused in the juice or whatever it was that made the?
No, I think that was the previous.
That was a few ones before. Now I see. Yep. I see the crocodiles. I remember now.
Now I must admit, on this podcast, I have actually said that I'm still sitting on the fence regarding this.
Yeah, you're not quite the fence sitter.
After part 5, I'm enjoying it a lot more. Part 5 to me was reading part 4 and then reading part 5. It was kind of like, okay, I'm enjoying this now, and I'm unable to get on board with it. So for me,
so why is that? Is it the city versus the jungle setting, or?
Yeah, it's weird because I like the jungle as well, but I just felt like like it was a bit more fun. Like you've got the Phantom sitting on the throne in part 5. You've got them all going to the movies. Like I like that, and then how the Phantom just appears in the room of Paris. In the change rooms in New York, and I don't know. And then you've kind of got the Phantom, borrowing a horse off a policeman. It was a little bit more, and it's kind of funny, but to me, it felt more Phantom-like at the end of part 4 and part 5, even though he's not in the jungle anymore. It felt more like a Phantom story to me. Which I know is going to sound weird, and I know not a lot of people will agree with me. But,
no, look, I understand what you're saying. Like even in the Raymore and the Wilson McCoy days, like the idea of the Phantom doing stuff in the jungle and then getting called to New York City, and it always seemed to be New York City, that he would have to go. And, probably as soon as he catches up with the Malkin, he'll have to contact Chief of Police Dave Palmer. We're back in that sort of vein of storytelling, and I really enjoy that as well. I enjoyed the jungle stuff, and I'm continuing to enjoy this story. Like straight up, when these comics arrive in my mailbox, I read the Grey Malkin story and then put it to one side, thinking, right, okay, I'll read the main story later on, but I want to see where the Malkin's at. So I actually read part 5, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Had to go over it again, but I read Prisoner of the Golden Cage, the main story, just tonight in readiness for the podcast.
So is that now? It's an interesting point that you make. Is that because you're time poor at the moment? And 8 pages is a better fit for you, or are you just not getting into like what is the reason for that?
That is probably a part of it, because reading the main story, like I agree with what you said about the Nest of the Undead. That was a good fun 20 minutes when I spent it. Like it didn't feel like that. But I am time poor, and if I can read a bite-sized Phantom story, then I will. But I'm also genuinely enjoying the Grey Malkin. I haven't done that before with some of the other 8 pages where I flip straight to the back. I'm enjoying this series. Certainly didn't do it the first time Phantom by Gaslight came around.
Yeah, cool.
And what I like about it, with mentioning the jungle and the city, the story's got them both. It's great, and it's great to see the Phantom having an adventure in the jungle. A lot of the times he's put into the city, or he's put out in a European castle or something like that. So it's great to see the Phantom back in his homeland and having adventures there.
I also like that there was no time wasted.
No, it's straight into it.
The jungle and New York. And I think sometimes when you're on 20 pages or something like that, you can almost waste too much on the journey rather than on the adventure. So,
well, that's what was happening a couple of years ago, back when Phantom was doing the 32-page stories, and you just think, geez, there's a fair bit of filler in it now. But now that they've let it down to 20 or 22, whatever it is, they're fast paced. They kick along.
You have to be.
Yeah, oh,
You
absolutely have to be.
Yeah.
So that's been a benefit of that happening. I'm enjoying the Grey Malkin. I really like how at the start of part 5, he's just reclining on the skull cave, as comfy as comfy as he can be on a chair made out of stone.
It is probably the most disrespected I've seen the skull throne ever look. but he's just comfy and kicking back.
Yeah. But how he's grumpy with himself. He's ticked himself off, and so he's got to go and make amends. And he's ticked off with the lady. What's her name? Miss Green. Fix up.
I liked how the Phantom was showing emotion.
Yeah.
In that, and is kind of like a bit ticked off and stuff like that. It shows the human side to the Phantom.
And I remember when we had Jason and he's talking about the number of panels per page.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some here he's got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 10, 11 pages.
It's got to be being only an 8-pager has got to be a factor, because you've got to try and split the panels in if you've only got that capacity.
Yeah. But he does mix up like the one before. It's only got 6 panels to it, and they're nice and big.
And his opening
that dynamics. It's nice, and some of them are nice and big, and then other ones you got to jam a whole lot of action in. It's not like you're going lots of places. It doesn't not moving the story on too much, but it's fast paced and action packed, and so small panels really help to deliver that.
Yeah. I wonder if any other fans are counting the number of his panels after that discussion we had with him on the podcast. It'll be interesting, because I reckon if you are. Before we get on to the story, can we talk about the cover on this one?
Oh, you had some news about this cover, Jerm, from our talks back a little while ago. Now, I like the cover. It's got I forgot that there was the main story here. I was about to move on to the
we'll do the cover. We'll do the cover, and then we'll talk about the main story.
Yeah, so I like this cover, Jerm. We've got the Phantom on horseback. He's riding alongside a young lady there, and they're riding off into the distance, but there's a helicopter charging down at them. What's wrong with that cover, Jerm?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it now, because it has been edited to be a little bit more palatable. The original cover is, if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. Audio will try and explain it to the best of our ability, but you've got Sandal Singh, who on the printed cover is riding alongside the Phantom. In the original, she's on the back cover, where it's kind of looking like the Phantom's chasing her. But she's
probably 3 or 4 times the size.
So on YouTube, we'll show what it looked like. And then the helicopter was kind of flipped. So this way. So basically what it looked like is that both the helicopter and the Phantom was chasing a girl, a young lady who, as we know in this story, is Sandal Singh. So King Features decided that it needed to be switched up a little bit. And so this is the finished product. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but in like one sentence, 30 seconds, do you think it was the right move, or do you think it was just should have been left alone, or who really cares?
I would have left it alone. I think if nothing else, but for the balance of the picture, like you can see in the printed version, there's so much dead space on the back page, which was filled by the much larger Sandal Singh running away. So if I was the artist, I'd be annoyed at the way that it messed with my composition. To be honest, if nothing else, as far as the look of it goes, I don't think it would have been that big a deal, and who cares? It would have been. It's only people who then opened up the cover who realised what the entire scene was, and I can't see that you're upsetting anyone. It seems like editorial overreach for mine, but
Stephen,
if that's what it takes to get it published.
Anything to add?
How is a girl going to run as fast as a horse? So why are they at the same pace? Would he be chasing after her in a threatening manner, or chasing after her to try and rescue her? Try and get to her before the chopper does. Before you told me that the cover had been changed, I didn't know, and I hadn't thought about it at all. And now you told me it's changed. Well, yeah, okay, but I don't see the need. But it hasn't wrecked the front cover. It's made the back cover.
Yeah.
A lot, like I said, a lot of dead space in the back cover.
I think, and I don't know what the timelines were, but if they were forced to change the cover like this, I would have liked to have seen a big inset of the grey Malkin. There could have been to fill that space. Boom, let's just grab one of the panels from Jason and throw that as an inset on the back cover. That could have been
even making that title down the bottom there, the Phantom by Gusto title, which is down the bottom, which I've only just noticed now. If they put that bigger up in that space, maybe. I know, I'm just trying.
But that said, as a deadlines and timelines, and I'm certainly not having a crack at Dudley. It's a shame that situation by the editorial team at KFS.
Yeah. So what about the story that this cover is actually for? The Prisoner of the Golden Cage. Now, talking about Dudley, in his message to the publisher, he kind of warns the reader.
Almost apologises.
Almost apologises for the for what they're about to read. I'll try and find a good. What did he say? This claimer might have political correctness and social. Yeah.
So basically, there's a few adult themes, I guess, is one way of putting it. There's
So basically, it's the story's giving us a background to Sandal and what her childhood was like.
Yeah, her origin
obviously
story.
Her childhood wasn't one of fun and frivolity. She was a prisoner, and the Golden Cage is the house that she lives in. So she's got all this wealth and stuff around her, but she's a prisoner. She can't leave. And so the story tells about her childhood and a run-in with the Phantom back when they were back when she was young.
Just to remind us that it is a Phantom story.
just to really put him. Did he really need to be in there? It was really just.
No, it worked from a narrative point of view because it meant that she'd had that earlier meeting with him before she knew who he was. She already had this ghost story of the Phantom in her mind. And then it gave them a connection when she really needed him later on.
Mm-hmm. Look, I enjoyed the story. I really did.
Yeah. Something I noticed as I was reading the story was the change in artists, or the change in the illustration, or in the art as I was reading. I thought, hang on, what's going on here? Those guys didn't look like that before. And I flipped back to the front and saw there was 3 artists' name there. And would you know about this, Jam, about why they did it like that?
Yeah, so apparently Joan started the story, but he got halfway through it. But I believe he got sick and wasn't able to complete the story. Now, if you've just listened to episode 201, it was with Andreas, and he talks about the deadlines of stories. And so I believe what had happened was Joan was unable to fit the deadline. And Andreas actually made mention that, sometimes we'll have to get a new artist in halfway through to finish the story to make sure they meet the deadline. So that's where Rafael Ruiz and Carol Martínez took over. And we've both got interviews with those two on the podcast on the website as well. So make sure you check those out. So I think that's what, from what I understand and talking to several people, that's what kind of happened is Joan got sick and Rafael and Carol kind of filled in. To be honest, because when I saw it, I was thinking, when I heard about it, I was thinking, their styles are not similar. But it didn't really jar. It didn't jar for me. It wasn't jarring or disruptive or anything like that for me.
No, I agree. It wasn't disruptive. You can certainly go back and identify exactly when it happened. And obviously, if you've got pages 14 and 15 open in front of you, then you can see the difference between the two styles. But it certainly didn't disrupt the story as you went through. And if anything, it was kind of at a natural place for you've gone to a different scene. So anyway, I agree. It's interesting to see even not just the art styles, but the way that they shape their panels. Joan has quite a lot of diagonal cuts through his panels and that sort of thing, whereas the other team, Ruiz and Martínez, did not at all. All very straight lines, perpendicular lines. So, but it wasn't too disruptive to the story. Agreed.
No, and like it took me a good couple of pages before I realised that, hang on, he wasn't drawn like that before, and I went back and had a look. But I think it's great that that they're able to get artists to come in and help when it's needed. That's it means that we get the Phantom story out on time, and that's only a benefit for us.
Yeah. Now, so Dudley, like we said before, Dudley kind of almost apologised for the adult themes. Did you think that the adult themes were too much? Or could you just live with it?
No, I was quite happy with it. Like it's a Sandal Singh story, and we know the tone of those. And Claes Riemerthi is a grown-up writer. He's not writing for kids. Until you had mentioned it just then, I actually hadn't read the message from the publisher because I tend to skip over that, as I've said in the past, because just in case there's a spoiler, and I would have found that to be spoilerish if I'd read that beforehand, because I've had different expectations. There was one scene where they talked about how Dogai Singh would only visit just on the off chance he could still make boys. That I sort of raised my eyebrows and go, I'm a bit, that's an adult theme. But other than that, I didn't really think that it was. And if I'm putting my if I'm looking at it through Angus's eyes, my 12-year-old son, I don't think he'd pick up on that. That wouldn't be. So I would have no qualms giving him this comic to read.
Dudley's line is, "It is a strong and deeply dark story that goes a long way to explain the influence of an overly aggressive, abusive, and inattentive husband and father. Yes, I know it sounds bleak, but believe me, it does have its light and shade if you go looking for it." So,
and then I like the bit where it says, "Sandal has my sympathy," which is something I never thought I'd say. I enjoyed the origin story with the two, and it shows why they are so close during the stories, where there's almost that where there is that extreme loyalness, and then it came from in here. So I think it was a story we had to get to be able to learn more about Sandal Singh. And there's my cat if you're on YouTube. So it kind of gives us a bit of an idea of Sandal. And I would agree with Dudley. I probably feel sorry for her, and I have more empathy for her after this story, which I think is probably the purpose of the story.
It still gives regular listeners of the podcast know exactly how I feel about the Sandal Singh storyline, and particularly the origin story, if you will, of her son Nadir, who does make a brief appearance right at the start. I got distracted by Germ dealing with his cat.
I wasn't looking at the screen.
What was I going to say? Sandal Singh. Oh yeah, I felt that knowing the origin story of Nadir, if you like, seeing the Phantom interact with a prepubescent Sandal Singh makes that whole story even more unpalatable. And maybe I'm viewing that with my teacher's eyes on, and child protection issues and all that sort of stuff. But it just it doesn't fix the earlier problems in this story arc. Let's say that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I reckon it does. I reckon it gives us more. For me, I have more sympathy, I can relate, feel I can relate a little bit more.
As long as Belen turns out to be the father of Nadir, then I'm fine,
Well, no, because you got to remember, in the story of when they spent the night in the jungle, she was having relationships with another man. So, there is an out. There is an out for whoever decides to take over this storyline, which we cover. And we discussed with Andreas in episode 201 as well. And so,
go back and listen to episode 201.
Yeah, make sure you go back and listen to episode 201.
My heart hasn't softened for what's her face?
Sandal.
Well, she's digging her mother out of a shallow grave now. God only knows where that's going to go.
No. That was it the mother or was it the nurse? I think it was the nurse, because at the
nurse was her mother.
I had a good hard think about that because it was a little vague. I've settled on it's definitely the mother because of the reference earlier to her just being buried in an unmarked grave. So I understand why you might have thought it was the nurse. I certainly had a good hard think about that myself. But yeah, I settled on the mum.
I thought the nurse was her mum. Like you had
No.
Sandal's wife, who everyone was saying is her mum, but really the nurse was really her mum, the one who was so kind to her.
Her mother figure, the one who actually loved her.
Yeah, and because she says, my parents didn't care about me, but you were always there for me, loved me, listened to me, even died for me, which is what the nurse did. So and then she's saying basically the nurse is like her mother, and that's why she says, I finally came back to take you home, mother. So I read it as the nurse. It'll be interesting what other people do it as, whether if you read it as the nurse or the mother, please let us know on social media. And which side of the fence? Jermayn's side of the fence or Dan's side of the fence?
Next up, we have 1904, which is Collector's Replica issue, correct?
Yep, number 29.
Number 29.
Does that mean that this is the last time with this cover?
I think it starts on the one of the next one, doesn't it? So it goes 1 to 10,
you'll be right,
11 to 20.
10. Yes.
Yeah.
I was just trying to give people a reason to be excited about number 30.
Do you happen to own issue 115, Jerm?
No.
Which is Wambo the Gambler for those people.
Just to speak on this issue really briefly, but this opening to issue 115, the page 4 of the Replica series, seems like an unusual front cover for a story. An unusual opening page for a story so old.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, I don't recognise that title format. It's not. Frew would usually have the for those who came in late story in much more detail. If I flip forward, the replica of issue 114 is the one I'm much more used to seeing.
In some stories, some of the panels were such of poor quality they actually had art staff who would redraw panels. Mr. Hogg had quite a few art panels that were redrawn. So what it may be is that it might actually be one of these, people who drew stories, because there was always stories that were created for Sir Falcon, Shadow, and all these other Frew characters around the same time. So maybe one of them actually kind of drew a couple of panels for the fandom as well. But it's a good spot.
It's just interesting to find out who the artist is. As I flip it through the comparison now, so that's issue 115. I put that as a Ray Moore style splash page to open it, and then it's a Wilson McCoy story. I showed before the 114, which is what I'm more used to, and then if you go to issue 113,
which is 68.
Yeah, it's a different. It's the same splash panel, but then different ones down the bottom. And a Wilson McCoy style. So anyway, it's I don't know if that means anything to anybody or anything, but it's just an interesting little observation.
Interesting observation. Interesting little tip.
So of these three, I prefer the Governor's Family. I enjoyed that story, the Governor's Family, and it reminds me of the Crybaby, the Reporter, where even Madcap Miriam or the Pampered Princess, where the Phantom turns spoilt people or people that need a bit of training and encouragement into better functioning human beings for society. And so it's got that warm, fuzzy, family friendly kind of feel to it. The White Monkey is just, in my opinion, is just a silly story. And then Wambo the Gambler, it is not bad, but I prefer the Governor's Family out of all of them.
I really like all three of these stories. And this is kind of the era of the fandom that I think in many ways is my favourite, the 50s. So, yeah, I really enjoyed all three.
Back when you were just a wee lad there in the 50s, when you got to read them when they first came out there, Dan?
Oh, no, my son would fetch them from the penny farthing store for me, and cycle them back with the butter, and we put it in the ice house while we...
Oh, it takes you back.
It does take me back.
Very good. So it's a good one to pick up and to read some good old timey Phantom stories. Now, to move on from good old timey Phantom stories, we mentioned before about Frew characters or artists having on staff at Frew to do Frew characters. We've got Giant Size 18 that has been released with the Scorpius story by Shane Foley featuring the Phantom, and Frew creation the Shadow, isn't it? Yep. Also, Catman and Sir Falk can get a slight little cameo there at the start. Before we get into it, what I really like about this is the three bad guys there, Prince Ramon, Prince Orc, and Prince Peppy. How he's drawn them then from original Lee Falk stories, and I went back and thought and just made sure these guys have been in there before, and yeah, of course they were. It's
the thing that I love about this Scorpius storyline is it makes these other characters, the other heroes, half almost relatable, and not just silly gimmicks from the 50s, but actually could be realistic. In saying that, we're talking about a purple costume jungle hero, but you know what I mean. But they're also using guys that have already been featured in Phantom stories as well. It reeks of someone who never really did. Yeah, it reeks of someone who's had a lot of fun creating these, and I reckon, guys, we might have to do a podcast on Phantom and the crossovers, because I've really enjoyed what Shane Foley has done with the crossovers in Giant Size. It's the reason why I read these Giant Size is because of the crossovers.
I agree. This particular issue, number 18, is almost more of a villain crossover than anything else, because you hear mostly about, and Sansamar is the other one, Queen Sansamar, that is in the mix as well. So it's actually a really good crossover series of the villains of the hierarchy of the Misty Mountains. I think is where you put them all in the Wilson McCoy days again, because that's the sort of area that Shane Foley's drawn on so heavily. But I was a little disappointed, I suppose, in these last couple of parts that there wasn't more appearances from the good guys. But that said, I really enjoyed the Phantom chasing down one of the bad guys and tracking down and then Shadow making his little cameo at the end as well was pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like the Shadow. That was cool.
Yeah, and even though it is a crossover with the Phantom and the Shadow, the Phantom really is the main fella here, and the Shadow is definitely a support act, which is what you want in a Phantom story.
It's interesting. On page 24, we know where is it? We know who it is, and if you're on YouTube, you see this. But it's got, Jimmy. What does it say?
Jimmy Gray.
Agent Thomas Gray and alias of Playboy Jimmy Gray. AKA, and then it's just got ... Now it'll be interesting to know why it wasn't, didn't say the person's name.
Do you think a publisher or a rights holder has had something to say about that, do you, James?
Look, I could be reading a lot into it, but I reckon, because remember we did hear what Dudley said in a various story that it might be the last of the crossovers in a message from the publisher with the Raven. So maybe the ... aka ... is a clever way of not crossing that line.
Well, having a Clayton's crossover, you're not really having a crossover.
Yeah, it's a really good point you make, and I hadn't really thought about this or connected those dots, but you're right. This does
after AKA.
No, this does, in light of exactly what I just said before about how it's a shame that the good guys didn't get more airtime as a crossover. This does perhaps smell of a storyline that KFS have said, actually, we don't like the Phantom crossovers and you can't do that. So this is a way to finish that storyline that was started before that edict came through, and stick as closely to that new ruling as possible by having the Phantom villains, the pre-established Phantom villains, being the main part of the storyline.
And I hope
they give us a reason why they don't want crossovers.
Yeah, I did like the villains getting a lot of attention. I really do like that because it
makes him more than just a face getting skull marked.
Exactly what I was going to say. Maybe not in as elegant words as yourself there, Stephen, but yeah, I totally agree.
And it was cleverly done, sticking to the characterization. I think it was Prince Orc, wasn't it, who really enjoyed, who had the telescope. And Shane's gone, wow, wouldn't he love being in a room filled with security cameras? And of course he would. That was, and he even says it himself, oh, this is so much better than the telescope. It's really cleverly done by someone who absolutely knows their fandom.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Did you read in the other stories?
I did, but before we do, mentioning before about putting up the bad guys and going make me Google, and on page 15 you got the trees there, and he said go Google them, so I did.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I went and checked.
I reckon he's
amazing
in front of him while he's drawn because it's unreal.
Check it out, old jungle suggestion.
I've never seen that before, and absolutely. I was the same as you, Steve. This afternoon, I was scrolling through my phone at pictures of Socotra or whatever it is.
Socotra. So there's a bunch of other stories in here as well. We've got, and I'll just go to the contents page. We've got the Phantom Ranger, Sir Falcon, and the Shadow. I don't think I read the Shadow, which I probably should have because that's probably the one I like the best.
Sir Falcon story was fun. I didn't mind that story. When I first read it and then looking back at it, that one probably.
Oh, that's with the guy pretending to be Sir Falcon.
Yeah, it probably that storyline stuck with me. Probably the best out of the other stories. In looking back at it in retrospect, as is the title of the giant size.
I didn't get a chance to read them, but and probably won't, to be honest. But
now, just quickly, super quickly, because I know there's a QR code on the back of that.
I thought that too, actually. That's the first time I've ever seen a QR code on a Phantom comic.
Yeah, I kind of looked at that and I went, "Oh, look at that! They're all getting all high tech on us." I'm not sure whether that was.
Have you scanned it?
But,
I just did. Guess where it goes?
I just did. It goes to a Chronicle Chamber page, mate. It goes to a Chronicle Chamber tutorials for Frew games, treasures, and Dracon.
There you go.
There you go. Did you genuinely not know that, Jim?
I kind of I didn't. But it would have been good if I kind of knew that and kind of led you into doing it.
Scan the QR for gameplay video link, and it goes to a Chronicle Chamber page.
That is brilliant. Thank you, Frew.
I reckon it was Dale. If I had to pick my Dale, I reckon it was Dale.
We've still got a little bit more of this podcast to go. So, and before we hand over to Mikael, who reviewed the latest Swedish comics, we are still on the lookout for someone from Brazil to review the Phantasma comics. So if you're in Brazil and you're listening to us and think, hey, I like Phantasma comics, I reckon I could review them for Chronicle Chamber, get in contact with us, and you pretty much get a gig.
Hello and welcome back for another Fantomen review with me, Mikael. This is issue 20 of 2021 and it features this beautiful cover by Luca Arbata with these women from Avaria and a reflection of the Phantom in this sword. It almost looks like an Anthony Spey Phantom, which I really enjoy, as you know, if you have listened to me before. The issue also have this grief ribbon to commemorate the memory of Claus Riemerty. It features 2 stories. Let's get into it. It has this editorial word about Claus Riemerty's passing and also about some information about the second story, but I will come back to that. So the main story is the Free Avar Front. It is a Sunday story from 2019, written by Tony DePaul and art by Jeff Weigel. And it's a continuation of the 2009 story, The Lost Kingdom of Avaria. This one hasn't shown up in Frew yet, so I won't give you any spoilers, but if you have followed the newspapers, you will probably know what happens. To me, this is a mixed bag. I like the art, the setting, most of the story, but a few things feels a bit off, but I enjoy more than I don't enjoy, and I would love to see a third part to this story. Then we have the second story, which is a 1999 story. One of those that they wrote about in this is that this was after Lee Falk has passed and they needed stories, so they took one of the Team Fantomen scripts and sent it to KFS, and they did this as a daily. So the art is by George Olsen and Keith Williams, and the story is written by Tony DePaul. The Ghost War is original name, and it's not one of my favorite. It's decent, but it doesn't exactly excite me that much. But yeah, and I think it's too bad that they published it in black and white as usual. And then we have some previews of the next issue, issue 21. It is in memory of Claus Riemerty. It has the Phantom story Easy Money, written by Claus Riemerty and art by Georges Bess. And it has a non-Phantom story, the Nordic Swans, also written by Claus Riemerty, of course, but with art by Jamie Wald. Easy Money hasn't been published in Australia yet, and we look forward to that in the 30th of September. This time we're gonna look at a special issue. It's in memory of Claus Riemerty issue. It's issue 21 of 2021. As you can see by this beautiful cover by Henrik Sahlström that features Claus Riemerty. I think it's the first time in a Fantomen comic book that we see a creator on the cover, and it looks very exclusive with this golden text it has. Let's get into it. So it features one Phantom adventure or story. It's called Lätta pengar, Easy Money, with art by Georges Bess and story, of course, by Claus Riemerty. It also has this editorial piece of where we're talking about memories about Claus Riemerty, and in this story it's about Rex and Tom Tom that get some small parts as actors, while bank robbers are also trying to find while there are bank robbers that also have some roles here, and they're trying to find out who the bad guys are. I enjoyed it, and there's also a non-Phantom story called the Nordic Swans, and it is also written by Claus Riemerty, and it is art by Jamie Wald. So it feels like a Phantom story, both by the art and also that it is historical in that era where they used to have Phantom stories. So it's two Team Fantomen members making a medieval comic about a company of that bickers a bit between themselves, but they need to take down a group of highwaymen. I think this was also quite good. And in between these two stories there are lots of in-memorial texts about Claus Riemerty. So all in all, it's filled with Claus Riemerty, and it was a very nice comic book. Next time we're gonna look at a double issue 22-23, and it's going to be released on 14th of October. It will have the spy ship, it will have the two stories about Hanta Witch, Heloise, by Falk and Barry, and it's gonna have the Halloween Gang by Claus Riemerty, written by Claus Riemerty with art by George Olsen and Keith Williams. That is the newspaper version of the story. That is and here's another Claus Riemerty image on the back. What time is it? It's time for the Fantomen review of 22-23 of 2021 with this amazing cover by Luc Arbata. It is amazing, and this one has 4 Phantom stories. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's great. So the main story is the Sunday story from last year, The Spy Ship, written by Tony DePaul and art by Jeff Weigel. It is a great story that expands the quite underused Vault of the Missing Men. I'm not a history buff, so I learned a bit here in the beginning with all the different characters, so that was fun. And a cool detail for this historic phantom met with Horatio Nelson a few times in the Team Fantomen stories as well, but he doesn't seem to recognize him. I guess it's the stress of war. I also like the meta story with Kadja and Ruiz trying to keep this a secret from her about she's living in Bengala and such. That was fun. And then they had the two stories of Heloise, and not Heloise the 22nd Phantom, but Heloise the Witch. First, both of which is written by Lee Falk and art by Cy Barry, black and white dailies, and Sunday. And together they tells the complete story about the Hunter Witch in a clever way. And these are really classics, and I enjoyed reading them, even though the daily are in black and white. And to round it off, another daily. It's from the Millennium Shift, The Halloween Gang, written by Claus Riemerty and art by George Olsen and Keith Williams. This is another of those stories that use the Team Fantomen script to be redone as a daily. And this one is quite good and fits the theme this year with it's coming out now and will be out over Halloween. And then there's the preview of the next issue. It's the 999th Team Fantomen story, Gatans rovdjur. In English that would be the Street Predators or something like that. And it also includes the classic story The Grove of the Sleeping Giant by Falk and McCoy. Then some offer to do a subscription, same offer as in this one, and also an ad for buying Cy Barry art. Yeah, that's all. No, wait, there was some editorial stuff. Yes, this about the person that lies in the vault of the missing men. And yeah, in Swedish it's only the vault of the missing, basically. So in the story when they were talking about that a woman, it was weird because of the name that didn't really translate that well. But yeah, so about Mozart, Jean Latif, Ludwig the 17th, Mungo Park, the soldier in the Nebulosa Ring, or what's it called, and the rat. This time we're gonna look at this year's soft cover book. These usually got released with the Gothenburg Book Fair, but yeah, it's already in my hand and it's not October yet. This year its theme is the old jungle saying rough on roughnecks. In Swedish it's hård mot de hårda. And it is quite thick. A wonderful cover by Luca Arbata. I think it is one of his best. And as you see, the spine matches up with the earlier ones. Quite good. I don't have all of them here. And it has several classic stories in black and white. Mine has some weird issue with the gluing on one side but not on the other side, but it seems like, the pages looks good and it flips well either way, so I'm not complaining yet. So let's go through it. So it has some foreword by Andreas. Then we have the slave market of Makar. It is the 82nd Phantom Daily story, written by Lee Falk and drawn by Cy Barry. And this is one of my favorite stories of all time. I read it many times, but maybe never as thoroughly as this time, since I was proofreading This was Barry's first daily and one of his best. I find it kind of funny when the main villain repeating, "Do not use my name," even though they all do it all the time. And the password to get into the city is his name spelled backwards. So he's not really that incognito, but yeah, becomes a bit of a funny thing. Next story is, let's see which page that is. So we have a bit more editorial about Lignante. And then we have Queen Samaris the 12th by Lee Falk and Bill Lignante. This is the only Sunday story with art exclusively by Lignante. It is an enjoyable story that has been remade twice, once for Gold Key and once by Team Fantomen. Samaris is like the opposite of the Phantom. Instead of living for a call to make life better for others, she only thinks about herself. And instead of teaching descendants to take up the call, she lives forever. But everyone think it's different women, and the Phantom is the other way around. Until she gets falls in love, of course. Next up we have, let's see here, some more editorial about Cyberry and this beautiful. I think this is a newly drawn commission piece. So, and after that it is the story The Golden Sands of Kilauea. This is the 69th Phantom Sunday story. It was originally published in American newspaper in 66 and 67, written by Falk and drawn by Barry. And this is the first occurrence of Junkar, Kilauea, and the Jade Hut. Makes this a really important story. The story in itself is great and takes place during the 6th Phantom, which is one of the best since he hangs around with Redbeard and Big Bart, the Crusher and Salla, which only showed up in this and the founding of the Jungle Patrol of the newspaper stories, but have many more stories, but they were only written by Team Fantomen, so not everyone recognized those. Then we have The Lions of Kukan. That is the 70th Phantom Sunday story and published in 67. It was written by Falk and drawn by Barry. Also a good story about this mountain prince who has an elaborate idea on how to kill the Phantom because he stops the native tribes from paying taxes. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. And then we have Jungle Olympics, and this is the one that is the 100th daily story, written by Falk and drawn by Barry. Yet another great story. Could the name Jungle Olympics be the most common name of a Phantom story? Because there are quite a few that is called that. And this is one of the better of those. And to top it off, another editorial piece written by Andreas Eriksson about sports or Olympic Games. Yeah, and that is a quick rundown of this amazing softcover book. Thank you for listening and happy phantoming.
Hello, and welcome to another Chronicle Chamber book review. I'm Ankit, and today I'll be reviewing legal comics from India's The Phantom, issues number 16, 17 and 18. Now, before I begin, I would just like to say that, this is like in the month of October, and Regal have 3 issues out. The last time they released the last few issues, which was, I think, 13, 14 and 15, it was the month of August. So just in about a couple of months we have 3 more issues, which is like amazing considering that still the world is reeling from COVID, and we are still not completely open, and things are still, pretty shaky. Those in Australia will really well know what's happening out there. Anyway, coming to the review, another thing I would like to point out is Regal are now really a victim of their own standards. Like, the production that they have been doing in their books is so high that the expectations are really high from them, and especially now with another uh, publisher in the market who are going to publish from the same library, Shakti Comics, that is. Regal really have to, cannot afford any kind of letdowns, or cannot let up at all. So one issue I would like to point out before we begin is that this time somehow there is an issue about the covers have been printed with it looks a little dull. The reason is, seems like when the covers were printed by the printing press or whatever, their whole the contrast became, so even someone like Vincent's cover, you can see it's really dark for some strange reason, like even the Phantom's face. So the best way to see is, if you compare it to this cover is done by me, and this is again, there's a distinct lack of reds and everything. Yeah, as I was saying, the best thing is to, you check the printing on the bookmark here, and you will see how different the vibrancy and the contrast is in these colors. So yeah, it's really a little disappointing. And same here, another cover done by me. See the actual vibrancy on the card, on what the colors and everything is. It's just like somebody put like a white blanket on top of it. Anyway, keeping all of that on side, the internals have nothing to say. Like, the internal stuff is still excellent. The colors, the paper quality, all of it is great. So let's begin the review. So first we have issue number 16. Issue number 16 has cover art by Vincent Moses Raja, and I think it's based off the story The Jungle Trek, and it has two stories, The Jungle Trek and The Scoundrel. Now the Jungle and it comes with a freebie, which is a sticker based on the cover art here. As you can see, it must have modified it a little bit to not have the darker highlights, but yeah, that's the sticker. So yeah, so as the stories have been written by Tony DePaul, and the artist is Paul Ryan on both of them. And as you can see, it's all the usual gloss paper and fantastic image fidelity and colors. Like, these are the KFS daily story colors, but when you print them really well, like you can see, sometimes KFS does this, they put these dots like plot matrix kind of things, and there's absolutely no bleed anywhere. It's absolutely clean. It's a really good print. So yeah, it's excellent. Talking about the gloss paper thing, I have with me one of the Frew's color issues. Now, as I was saying, paper goes a long way to really make things shine, and Frew's paper being matte, and this is not the trade paperback, this is like a standard pages, and it's really not very conducive to the colors, because I'm sure looking at these are even Pedersen's colors, and I mean, these colors must be like, it would pop way more the moment it's printed on some paper, something like this, So yeah, as usual, as I was saying, the internals and everything, nothing to say. It's absolutely spot on. Great stuff. So on to issue number 17. Now, issue number 17 is Claus Riemerthi tribute issue. As we all know, Claus unfortunately left us in sometime this couple of months back, and yeah, this is Regal's tribute to him. Now the thing is, the cover art is done by me, and while doing this, I had actually pitched to Regal about, because Claus had just announced his retirement when not just like he had announced retirement a few months before, And so I thought, like, like, why not have a Claus Riemerthi, like, commemorative issue. And that's actually mentioned here by the editorial, that it was originally meant to be a commemorative issue of his legacy on the strip, but unfortunately he died, and a lot of things had to be redone to make it a tribute issue instead of a. It's very, very unfortunate. And it starts off like, this is a portrait that I did of Claus, and starts off, and it has an article by Mikael Lyck, who you might be knowing from the Phantom, the card game, and he's also a Phantoman proofreader and also a part of Chronicle Chamber. So yeah, Mikael has a article which talks about his growing up reading the Team Phantoman stuff, and how he remembers Claus, who was like a very, very titular figure in the Team Phantoman thing. And the freebie that comes with it is a bookmark based off the cover art. So the stories collected here are the Snake Goddess's Island and the Lions at Tamarin. So these were some of Claus's 2 Sunday strips, and personally I really love Snake Goddess's Island, because it has that esoteric, that vibe, and nothing to say about, again, the production inside. It's absolutely top notch. The stuff here is done so well. I mean, the colors and everything, it's exactly what the Sundays actually were. So yeah, nothing about it. So this is a pretty important issue that way for Regal and all of us. Get this one, of course. Say on to issue number 18. Now issue number 18 was the brief is the cover art is again done by me, and the brief to me was they wanted something horror and something like because there is a story called the Halloween Kidnappers. Now Halloween Kidnappers is a story about the kidnapping, like it's a crime story, and usually when I draw a cover I base it on the the style of the story or something. It's not abstract, but I was given a brief where they wanted like a Halloweenish horror scenario with like the jack-o'-lanterns and the pumpkin carvings and whatever. So this is what I came up with, and it comes with a freebie, which is a collectible card, which is of the cover art. So yeah, and since even the Halloween Kidnappers is written by Claus, and the inside cover has again that same portrait of Claus, and so this is a Claus Reimerthi daily, and it's actually an adaptation of a Team Phantoman story by Claus, and the artist, if I am not mistaken, was Hans Lindahl. So it's a adaptation of that done for the daily strip, and Ollison and Keith Williams do a decent job on it. I've never been a fan of Ollison and Williams' art. I've always found the Phantom to be so inconsistent looking, like this. So for me, like, it's just the quality of the story that keeps it alive. And look, another goofy looking Phantom. So yeah, it's just excuse me, that is the thing. Now is the challenge. The challenge is a very interesting story. It is about about the successor of the Banda tribe, and how the leader of the tribe is always chosen. So it's a very unique story, and it's done by Tony DePaul and Paul Ryan again. So I'm glad, again, Paul Ryan's art, and Paul Ryan's basically got me back into reading the Phantom, because after Cy Barry, his was the most consistent artist I have seen when portraying all characters, and I've always been a fan of his work since his Marvel years. So yeah, and the challenge is a great story that way. it's a little different. It's a little laid back story. It doesn't have that kind of action. It's more about the bandar. So it's more character development for the supporting characters, for the Phantom mythos. And challenge basically also has like a lot of really great insight into the culture of the bandits, and more importantly it's a very nice way to take a break. Like usually everything of Phantom is like very Phantom centric, of some crime and something being solved, but here we have a story which is just develops on all the supporting casts. So yeah, so there we have it, issues 16, 17 and 18. I hope Regal will again get back on track with the cover zone, because I know for a fact they have a lot of big plans coming up for the end of the year as well as the next year and all. And the thing is, they have just, their standard has been so high so consistently for so long that our expectations are huge, because these are actually great books, no doubt. Even with the cover, whatever I may say, these are great stuff. I mean, the cover doesn't look that bad also, but however, they can do better, and they have shown that they can do better, and that's what we expect of them. And so yeah, well, guys, go out, support them. You get again, all of these books are about, each book is about $200 and have 2 stories, high quality paper, high quality print, fidelity, all of it. So yeah, that's it. Happy phantoming.
Thank you very much, Mikael, and thank you, Ankit, for reviewing the Regal issues there from India. Now, unfortunately, we do not have a video review of the Phantom Annual, but we do have a text review written by Christian.
Just before we go into the next thing, Steve, I was just going to ask Jerm, because I have a feeling I know your answer, Steve. But Jerm, are you still collecting the Regal comics? I sort of tapped out at about issue 6, I think, for no good reason other than the cost. But you're maintaining the collection.
Yeah.
I can't believe they're up to issue 18 already. That seems to have just flown.
It has. It's been over a year since they were publishing them. So I think it worked out that they were publishing one a month. So, and then obviously they've got a slightly different publishing format at the moment. But yeah, still getting them. They're stuck in India at the moment. I've got Swarut, who's been on the podcast as well before. He's buying them for me, and then he ships them over when he can. I'll be getting the Shakti ones as well. Ankit will be reviewing those for us, which will probably be out before this podcast. It may even sneak onto the podcast, and you might have already listened to it and might be going, mate, these guys are not organised at all. So we'll see how that goes as well. But yeah, look, the comics are good. They're in colour. Yeah. In a lot of ways, they're probably a better comic than Frew.
Yeah, I must say I was impressed with the quality of the ones that I got, and it really probably is only the import fees and the extra cost there that, and the fact that probably if I could
fruit tax, the fruit tax,
the fruit tax, yeah, perhaps. Anyway, they'll still. I haven't kept up with even Frew selling them. I guess they are still. Are they still importing them?
Yes.
Cool. I don't have any, so I'm just taking your word that they're good. Okay, so we've also had in the newspaper, the Phantom's still alive and well, which is fantastic. It was a bit touch and go there for a while on his road to Gravelines. So we've got the Sunday story. Oh, the Sunday story wrapped up. So we're starting off with the Sunday story, The Visitor. Where this mysterious visitor has been around for centuries. He pops up every now and then, every couple of generations. And the devil plays a part in the conclusion of the Sunday story, The Visitor. Did you like the way it concluded? Did you like the way the story was anyway? You know, lots of things happen in this story. We got to see the Hall of Costumes, a new element. Well, there've always been the Hall of Costumes, but now there's extra things to it, and there's lots of discussion about that in episode 200, if I remember correctly. Dan, have you been keeping up with the Sundays? Yeah,
I have. And I know I can absolutely understand why Tony DePaul would have said that he wasn't sure how people were going to take it, and it was probably a love it or loathe it type story. I'm probably not at either camp of love it or loathe it. The fleshing out of the Hall of Costumes, which is only a relatively recent creation or introduction by Tony DePaul, I think that if only for that, this story will be quite an important story. Sorry, there we go. So Germ's sharing the screen as we speak. For those of you who are watching YouTube, I think because of the introduction of the Hall of Costumes, this is going to be a really important story going forward for the Phantom, because this will in part guide how people could draw past Phantom stories and the costumes that the past Phantoms are wearing. As far as the Visitor itself goes, it's an interesting idea, and I didn't like the last page, the last sequence the first time I read it, but the more I read it, the more I liked it, and I've actually come away going, actually, that's not bad. So it's an interesting concept, and what I like about it, and it's on the screen now, but what I like about it is Jeff Weigel's depiction of the interaction between Devil and the Visitor, and that gives you pause for thought as to what this thing could be. And I don't like supernatural Phantom stories, but as a general rule, and so for that reason, I'll never love this one. But I don't. A lot of people really didn't like it. I interpreted online. I didn't have that reaction.
Yeah, well, I struggled to find a reason to like this story. Look, Tony's not going to hit it out of the park each time. I struggled to. Tony seems to me to be the type of writer that always has a bigger plan, always has an end goal, which is 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the track, and we've seen a lot of continuity in his stories. I struggle to see how this is going to fit in 1, 2, 3, 10 years down the path. Is it just going to be a standalone? Is it just something totally different? You know, Lee Falk did them a lot in the 70s and 80s. Look, I probably prefer this one a little bit more than some of them, like the Lost City of Phoenix, or the Little People, Steggy and Huz and stuff like that. This story,
classics. What are you talking
I
about?
prefer over those stories, but I'm not sold on the Visitor. But who is the Visitor? Does anyone have any theories on who the Visitor could be?
Just would seem to be probably some spirit that has occupied the place that is now the Skull Cave for eons and eons past, has some sort of shape-shifting ability to mimic the beings that are around it, and
which is why he always looks like past Phantoms, and then why he looked like Devil.
Yeah,
correct. The last one.
Yeah. Look, as I say, the Blue Giant hasn't never been seen again since, and that's been okay, and it's okay as a standalone story without needing to revisit it. Maybe this
horrible
falls
story. Yeah, Stephen, what do you reckon?
I'm trying to figure out what the spirit could be. Maybe it's taking on the shape of the most dominant form in the room at the moment, because many people have seen the spirit and thinking it is the Phantom, but the Phantom's nowhere near him, and all of a sudden at the end there, Devil's in charge, and so he starts taking the form of Devil. I don't like. It's not my favorite story. I can live with it. I wasn't a big fan of changing up the costumes either. I can see the reasoning behind it, but it doesn't mean I need to like it. I know other people have really have liked it, and having the print sell out in record timing, I think, goes to show that people really like that, or they just like the art. And I do like the art. but
Yeah.
I'm not overly fond of the concept. I'm looking forward to the next story more so than this one. It's got, well, so far in the first couple of weeks we've got the
Can I just
Maury.
say one thing before we go into the next story? Sorry.
Yep.
The thing that Tony and Jeff have done a brilliant job at with The Visitor is everyone, every fan is talking about it and has an opinion about it. And that's amazing, because a lot of the time no one talks about the newspaper stories. And so whether it's all good or all bad or a mixture of both, which I believe it's the case in this one, Tony and Jeff have done an amazing job that everyone has an opinion about this story. And that is something that doesn't always get done. So 2 thumbs up for doing that, because they've done an amazing job with that.
And just while you're there, if you're on YouTube, you're seeing the very last Sunday page of this story. And to give credit to Jeff Weigel, every single character, every single depiction of every single character, so every Diana, every Phantom, every Devil, and the Visitor itself, just magnificent drawings. And just he really has. I think he said in episode 200 that he felt like he was in the rhythm of the character and knows who it is and can draw. This is amazing. Very impressed.
Especially the part where Devil's going through the Visitor. It's just, there's a lot happening there. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But I'm really looking forward to this Maury story and seeing what's going on here.
Agreed. So again, loving the fact that Jeff is changing the title panel for every Sunday. I think that's a tradition that will absolutely stick. I can't see how a new Sunday artist coming in isn't going to continue doing that. So I think
I remember when Jeff started doing that, Terry Beattie, who was a Sunday artist before, was like, "Oh, that's a brilliant idea. Why did I think of it? That could have been so much more fun." And I had to stick to the old same one as well. So I think you're right, Dan. I think there will be a lot more artists trying to jump on board the Sunday if Jeff ever decides to move on, because he's brought a great tradition. And I've said it before, some publisher, whether it's Frew, Phantom Man, or whatever, or someone needs to do something with these title panels, because they're too good just to be seen in the newspaper. They need whether they're trading cards, postcards that are giveaways in the Christmas album, maybe with when they publish these Sunday stories or something, but they need to be used because they are pieces of artwork that people need to see more of them.
Why don't you put them in with the annual?
We need another Patreon level, so that we can start producing these ourselves.
Yeah.
Why don't you take away the replica from the annual and put these in instead?
Brilliant idea. Anything where the annual goes missing and something useful gets added is a good idea. So totally on board.
Steve, what is it you like about because we've seen 2 weeks of this Sunday so far. What do you like about it at this stage?
One, it's in a jungle tribe, the Maury. Are you able to move it across?
Sorry, it just
so this
itself.
Is today.
3 weeks.
So this is the first one. So it's 3 weeks. This is the second one where it goes through the past stories, and then this is today's as of recording.
Yep. So I was wondering what those girls were talking about, or was there something big happening? And then, it's now today he's in the village there, and it looks like that it's going to be a female versus male battle of the sexes type story, and I can't wait to see the adventure that hopefully someone's going to get into trouble. Fam's going to have to rescue them. It's got all the bearings of being a good
jungle
story, and I'm looking forward to it. And you can see the poor prince or king, whoever he is, in the middle there, trying to defend himself and his patriarchy against a couple of women who want equal rights. I'm guessing it's not like they've been treated too bad, but no female can be the ruler. So let's see if they can fix that up.
I remember a Lee Falk and Barry story where it was the Jungle Olympics, And then the female's like, well, why can't we participate in the Olympics, in the Jungle Olympics as well? And so there was a lot of good, healthy competition in there. And that was a fun story. So I reckon this story is going to have some of those same attributes and be a lot of fun as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
I really like how in this page that we're looking at, and that's the Sunday dated 31st of October for those of you who aren't on YouTube, but in this particular page, the Phantom has absolutely thrown the head of the Maury under the bus. The girls have come to him, Phantom, don't you think we should be allowed to do it? Why, of course you should be allowed to do it. Anyway, Maury people, you work that out. And so they can go to the prince and pester him.
It was almost
he said, don't you think the world's changing? He said, yes, of course the world's changing. Yeah.
It was almost like he got himself into trouble and then he kind of hand-passed the trouble off to the king, so the king gets into trouble and not the Phantom.
Correct.
Nothing I like about this, and I can't remember who was saying it, whether it was Tony or whether it was Jeff. Could have been either, could have been neither. How they're making the tribes very unique, and particularly with their clothing and what have you. So these guys being the Maori, they've got a certain way of dressing compared to the Wambezi and the Longo and what have you.
And just a little thing like the Phantom is at least half a head taller than everybody else in the tribe. Like that sort of attention to detail that Jeff's thinking of and putting into his drawings is it's really cool.
The daily story is still going. It's merged into a second story. It really is a continuing. We've got Turak and Ruin at Gravelines, which is Old Man Moz telling what's going to happen to the Phantom if he decides to go and rescue Savannah. Did you pick up that the Phantom was injured? In the story? Oh, he's being shot at.
Yeah. So when did you pick up that the Phantom was shot as you were reading this?
It was something that when he said that. I can't read it. You're moving so fast.
So there was this one here. I reckon it was either the 14th or probably the 15th. I think it was the 15th of September. I reckon
those holes are going straight through his back.
Yeah, and that's kind of like where it was. And then you see him grimace. You see the Phantom grimace. So I reckon that is. I was about to say the kill shot, but it wasn't quite the kill shot. But I reckon that was the incident, and you kind of see this guy here just lining him right up, and that seat being peppered.
So talking about attention to detail.
Yeah. So. And then they kind of go, they shot us to pieces, and the Phantom goes, yeah, no kidding. I just,
Just a bit of shrapnel on my back.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't pick that at the time.
For me, if you, in hindsight, yes, you can go back to that. But the first time I actually saw when I was reading it that the Phantom was injured was that previous page you just had, which was, I guess, the 19th.
Yeah.
Or the 18th of September. When he says if you take Hero, he'll get you home, and that was the first indication for me. We go, oh right, hang on, Phantom hasn't come through that as well as we might have thought.
I reckon that's probably it for a lot of people.
They've Moz has wrapped up telling this story underneath the tree, and now they're going to go to the Skull Cave, where it seems that Moz is going to retell the story. It seems to say that, something's happening there. He's going to tell the story to make sure that the Phantom doesn't go rush off and ruin the
I'm not sure if I'm a little bit lost or I'm a little bit like, what's kind of going on here. It's got me intrigued why the Phantom and Moz have to go from the tree to the Skull Cave. It's going to be interesting to see the purpose of that. I'm sure, like I said, I know Tony does things for a reason. Things just don't happen by accident in his stories. So I'm intrigued to see where and how that goes. Old Man Moz and the Phantom are kind of feeling a little bit almost testy, like almost annoyed with each other. Like, the Phantom's like, come on, give me some straight answers and stuff like that. And then Old Man Moz is speaking in riddles and and it's just an interesting dynamic between the two of them.
No, I've got no
It seems
problem
to
with
get a
it
bit
all.
frustrated.
It would be frustrating for each of them to be dealing with the other in this moment. It makes sense.
Kind of looks like the death there.
Yeah, he does look like the Grim Reaper there. There was another panel just back here, again, if you're on YouTube, where they actually thought that the Phantom did die, which I thought was really, really like this one here on the 1st of October. You see how they're kind of in black, like the panels and all that as well, and there's a lot of black, a lot of heads down and shadow work, which kind of gives you the feel that the Phantom had passed away. And then on here as well, and then and then we're back, and it's some clever storytelling and clever artwork by Manly to kind of match the story.
So we're interested to see what the Chronicle of Old Man Moz will have in store for us. Is there a special chronicle in the Chronicle Chamber that Moz just writes in? But before they got there, they had to patch him up. They went to a vet. You reckon he's going to be a recurring character? I think he just happened to be there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because there's like a name and all that. So I reckon we will see him again.
So that's about all in the episode. So to spruik our earlier episodes again, in episode 200, Tony DePaul, Jeff Weigel, and Mark Manley joined us with Patreons, and there are lots of comments and discussions about these stories, and also about past and future stories. So do yourself a favour.
Some of the commentary I've seen online around these panels recently has been, this story is starting to drag on. We're just going through this again. What are your thoughts about that? I've got my own ideas, but what do you guys think about whether this is dragging on or not?
Well, for the action sections there at Gravelines were great, but now we need something to happen again pretty quickly. We're about to go to it seems like we're going back to the Skull Cave just to hear another story. Hopefully he starts telling it soon just to get the ball rolling again.
I could see where they're coming from, but in rereading it today to kind of, catch up, and actually a great read when you can not have to read it one panel a day, then you can read like the whole lot. It's actually a really interesting reading. You get to see, and you get to get a lot more into it. It's almost a pity that it has to be a daily story and not an actual comic where like Mike Manley could do bigger, interesting panels, but Lee Falk stories were like that as well. There was a lot of stories where it just dragged on and on and on and on. When you're reading it in the past, when you're reading it after the matter of the fact, it's a great story.
Yeah, and that was going to be exactly my point. I think that when collected into a comic book, this is going to have all the right beats and you need some downtime to get ready to go up again. When you're reading 1, 2, 3 panels a day, then I can understand why it feels like it's drawn out. But I think when it's collected, which I guess raises the question of it must be so difficult for a creative team to be putting together something that is still that fits both. That fits an extended read, but also keeps people coming back day after day.
2 quick things. Old Man Moz looks like one of what's those people off
Jawa.
Ewoks.
Star Wars? The Ewoks?
It's like a Jawa. Nah, Jawa. The scrap merchants, whatever, at the start.
Yeah, like with the little eyes and stuff like that. And then I'm not sure if anyone else has noticed, but Old Man Moz has switched his staff. If you're on YouTube, I'll show what the staff used to look like. It basically was a stick with a big knobby bit on the end. But this is kind of more like a shepherd's hook type of thing. So, interesting. It'll be interesting to see if that was just something that was just created, or whether Tony DePaul's got a reason for this. Maybe I'm giving Tony too much credit, but maybe there's a reason why Old Man Moz has changed his staff.
I feel like you might be overreading that.
Probably.
We got one more comic that's come out recently. It's not technically Phantom story, but it is obviously Phantom inspired.
Talking about Kieran Jack's publication that came out through Kickstarter earlier this year called The Apparition. In fact, the Kickstarter for Apparition 2 is going to launch in the next week or so, I want to say. And we all got copies of it. We all signed up to the Kickstarter and got copies of it. It says 1,000,000 times in here that it's got nothing to do with the Phantom and any connections to any other story, living or dead, etc., is purely coincidental. I'm not buying that for a second, Kieran, if you're listening to this. There is no way, like you've said in your message from the publisher, in a page that looks exactly like a Frew from the 1980s, that if you think this is it might look familiar. Well, no, you're wrong. Shut up. I'm not going to shut up, Kieran. This is the Phantom. It's clearly Phantom inspired. To claim otherwise is really facetious. But look, I enjoyed the way it was put together. Like a bunch of it clearly is got Frew tropes. It's got Phantom tropes. It's heavily based on the Phantom rather than any other pulp character or anything else that may be espoused in here. But I did enjoy the way that it was 4 or 5 different books that had different styles. The first story was your landscape printing, which was reminiscent of the 1930s, dailies and Sundays, and then he's got stories in here that are much more reminiscent of modern Phantom stories and Team Phantom stories, as published by Frew as well. What were your thoughts as to as Phantom fans reading it? What did we think?
I enjoyed it. It was a story of, it was kind of like two halves. The first bit was funny and parody, and it was fun, and then it turned dark, and when it turned dark, it became less Phantom-like-ish, and I think I preferred the first kind of half of it where it was a little bit more fun, and it was almost picking or poking fun at the Phantom, and I didn't mind that. But I enjoyed the first half over the second half.
Well, I might have to pick it up and read it again, because the way that Dan's just sprinked then made me keen to give it another go. What you've said there, Jerm, how it changes after that, the poking fun at the start. I couldn't get past the first few pages, really. When I first picked it up, I did read it, issue 0. I got issue 0 as well as issue 1. I didn't mind issue 0, but I started issue 1 and I put it down. But I'll probably pick it up again tomorrow. Look, back of your word.
And I'm not going to back away from my spruiking, because there are parts of this that I really enjoyed. I had to park my fandom to one side for a bit of it, because, like you, Steve, I found a bit of it distasteful and disrespectful in a way, as it goes dark, I suppose. And even ahead of that, there's some stuff in there you're like, that said, I'll probably will still go the second Kickstarter just to see how the story ends, I suppose. But yeah, I can't say I enjoyed it as such.
What about you, Steve? You're going to go the second Kickstarter?
I'll have to finish reading it. At the moment, I'm saying no.
Yeah, I'm probably a no as well.
So, as always, if you agree or disagree with our reviews of the new comics from October, you can let us know via our social. Now we're on to the news. So, we've done the comics. If you just want to have a bit of a breather, grab yourself a nice glass of milk and then press play again and enjoy some news. And there's plenty of news going along now. Jam's all over this. The first bit of news is something that I think we're all across. Games by Lyck Kickstarter campaign. Mikael Lyck, of course, has released the extension pack for the Phantom the card game, which is a fantastic card game. If you haven't bought it yet, do yourself a favour.
And you've actually played it, haven't you, Steve?
I'm going to play it again tomorrow. I've got the day off tomorrow. That's the first thing I'm going to do tomorrow. I was going to kick back and just play Xbox. I thought, no, I'm going to play the card game. Like from go to what? I want to start from the Story of Devil and finish at the I can't remember, not the Dino one, the last one, year 1, I think. And play it properly. Getting the abilities and upskilling yourself and upskilling your deck. Once I figured out how to do that, the game really expanded for me. I really like it. Yeah, for those people who aren't into card games or have never done it, it's a great little dip your toe into, and you soon figure out, how to play it and get into it. I really enjoy it.
It's a good collectible, even if you don't play card games.
Yeah, I might need to buy a second copy. Mine's definitely not in mint condition anymore.
Hello again, Mikael here with a short news update about the Phantom the card game. The Kickstarter for the expansion Tarin Mavitan ended this weekend, and it went way past its goal, like 4 times the amount. I'm so happy and so grateful for everyone who helped making this Kickstarter a success, and looking forward to see the game in action. Next step will be that I'm waiting for Kickstarter to make sure that they get all the funds, and then we can start sending out the base games to those who had for those who came in late pledge, and start talking with the printers and make sure that they print the expansion, which might take a bit longer than we hope because there's some resource shortage in the world, and but I will try to do it as fast as possible. That's all from me. Thank you and happy phantoming.
Good news, it was fully funded within hours? Not even
24 hours.
Not even 24 hours. I think by the time we woke up, it had already been funded.
Yeah, I think that's right. It launched at midnight or something our time, and by the time we woke up at 6 a.m., it was already funded.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Well done.
It's just crazy, and I think he's funded nearly 500%, like nearly 5 times what he was hoping for. Yeah. And I'd be interested to hear from Mikael. I hope he mentions it in the video as to like returning customers, like people who are getting the expansion pack on top of the game. It seems to be a huge return of people coming back for more.
And not only that, it reached a couple of stretch goals. So that's more great news about it.
Yeah, always like extra goodies.
Okay, so moving on from that great news onto more great news. This time coming from Germany, and as we know, Jermayn is the guru for international comics. What's happening over there in Germany? Or a new German publisher, Germ?
Yes, so 2022 will be probably the year where we will see not one but 2 publishers from Germany release comics. So the first one, which we discussed,
I think they are India.
Seems to be a bit of a common occurrence. So last year we talked about Wick Publications, which was going to be re-releasing some old and never seen before Bastille comics from the 80s that were going to be re-imaged. So they should be out in the first quarter of 2022. And then we saw a new cover from Timo, who did a fabulous collage painting style of the Phantom. Again, if you're on YouTube, there'll be a picture of that. And that was for the comics publisher, which they're also a musician. They also do CDs as well and records. Zubistan. Any of you more fluent in German than what I am?
Zubistan.
Gotta say it with
Zubistan.
So so from what we understand, they're going to be doing some daily and Sunday stories, but also maybe some Team Phantom and Frew stories as well. So
that's good to hear. That Zubistan is doing that one.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, excellent.
So it's pretty exciting that we're going to be having another country publishing the Phantom. So when they publish it, there will be 11 countries that will be publishing the Phantom currently.
And
cool. It'll be a while since there's been that many around the world. Because I'm sure we were talking not that long ago about there only being 4 or 5.
Yeah, well, yeah. So then there was Hungary, India's publishing it again. Norway's published their annual this year as well. Finland's got the softcover album, so it's it is really good. Spain's reproducing the daily story, the Falk stories as well. So it's good to see countries bringing out new and old stories. It is really good to see.
Time for a renaissance. Where's Hollywood? Come on.
I reckon.
Where's the Netflix deal? Okay. Next up, we've got Mythos. New format for their comics. What type of format's that?
Yeah, so this, as we're recording, the article hasn't been written yet. I'm just still gathering some information on that. But Mythos is changing their format for their comics. So we've already seen a couple of changes before from Team Phantom Men stories. Then they were doing Lee Falk, classic Lee Falk stories, and they're changing their format again. So there will be an article on the website probably in the next. By the time this goes out, there will be an article on the website which will go through that in a little bit more detail.
So when you say new format, it's the type of stories, not the way that they're...
A bit of both. So the type of stories, how regularly they publish them, and also probably the thickness and stuff like that. Now, this is due, from what I understand so far, it's due to COVID reasons, but also the comic isn't making as much money as they were hoping. So they're just trying to rejig it to, I guess, get some more interest. So hopefully... it seems from the Brazilian fans that I've talked to, they prefer the Team Phantom Men stories over the newspaper stories, purely because they already had the newspaper stories, whether the Team Phantom Men stories were new for them. So there was a lot more interest around the Team Phantom Men stories. So it'll be interesting to see whether they go back to that.
And you mentioned COVID there, Jerm, but unfortunately the situation has been that international collectors have not really been able to contribute to the profit margins for Mythos because it's been very, very difficult to get anything out of Brazil over the last couple of years. Yeah,
I've got issue 1, but I don't have any of the other issues, and they're up to like issue 15 or something like that. And it wouldn't be a huge market, but it's extra cash. It helps get rid of the extra issues that haven't been sold. It's kind of like the cream
similar
on
to
top.
Regal too. Like if Frew had been able to get some sort of a pipeline through, then I'm sure that a lot more Australian collectors would have picked up issues if they are as easily accessible as just
even if it was only even if it was only 50 comics extra that were being sold. It's profit.
Okay. Editions Dante releasing trade paperbacks instead of single issues.
Yeah, so this news is probably a little bit older now that we're talking about it, probably about a month after we talked about it on the website. But basically, they did trade paperbacks, then they went into single issues. They did 2 of them, including a digital copy. But basically, they didn't sell that well, so they're going back to the trade paperbacks. So again, it's good to see these publishers, whether it's Mythos, Editions, Dante, where it doesn't work. So instead of just throwing it in the too hard basket, they're like, okay, let's try this instead. So it's good to see these publishers sticking to trying to give the Phantom a go, because we want more Phantom comics, because more Phantom comics means the popularity increases, which means there's more of a chance of a movie or a Netflix deal, which you talked about before, Stephen.
Yeah. So this trade paperback, though, so Edition Dante is the French publisher, and they look like they're gathering together a bunch of American comics from about 30, 40 years ago, the Gold Key Charlton series. Like it's an unusual choice for a French publisher to be going, right, let's go American, which we all know are good stories in some ways, but have their problems in another way, like that series of Gold Key, Charlton King.
I have a theory. That they're super cheap, that they're probably the cheapest bunch of stories to buy from King Features.
Yeah, because then you've got to translate them all, obviously.
Yeah. What's actually interesting is they're actually looking at doing an English version of the trade paperback as well.
Yeah, right. So that would certainly be cool.
Yeah. So look, I don't know. You're right. It is an odd choice going those King Charlton stories because, and we've reviewed a few of them in giant sizes and stuff like that, and they're never higher on our.
And Hermes Press has already re-released a bunch of those too.
Yeah. So I reckon they're cheap. That's the reason why they're included. They're probably cheaper than the newspaper stories.
Yeah, right.
If I had
Something
that's my
to keep
guess,
out,
yeah.
something to keep an eye out for our French listener. And hello, Orm. I hope you're going well.
Very good. Something else to keep an eye out for, but probably not this year. It's probably going to be early next year, thanks to the pandemic that is COVID. But we've got an update on Boss Fight Studio Phantom figurines.
Yeah, so again, all these links from the articles will be on the show notes as well, so you can go back and read them if we're going through them a little bit too quickly or a little bit too fast. But they've released some prototypes, I guess is the best word to describe them, of Julie and the Phantom, and also of the Little People. I know the Little People has a lot of fans, and especially one of our listeners in Nick and Sean. I know they're quite excited about the Little People.
Can't wait.
But
Can't wait to get my action figure of Blood.
We'll go with Zuffy from Defenders of the Earth.
You laugh, but I actually am genuinely looking forward to having the Little People figure.
I am. I like those stories. You keep bagging them. I actually like them.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so silly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's some pictures on our website. There's some pictures of the tooling where they've, they've got them in cool action poses and stuff like that. So basically, what this is, it's kind of like the final tooling. So it's like a prototype in what other people will call it. And then they play with it and they go, yes, that looks good. They look what we wanted. They're not painted because that takes extra time. And then when they're happy with them, they will then make, from what I understand, there was a couple of small little changes. And then there's one more round of tooling. And then if they're happy with that, then it goes into production. So we were talking to Eric? Who we've had on the podcast and we've kept in touch with. And he said that if there's no more pandemic delays, that the first half of 2022 is a realistic date. So they were originally going to be released in the first quarter of 2021. But as we know, COVID doesn't play by the rules. And so they're looking like there'll be about a year delay. But go have a look at the photos. I really like the picture of Julie sitting down reading the Chronicle, and then you've got the Phantom with putting his hand up for the little person on the dove or the falcon to land on his hand and stuff like that. So there's going to be some cool poses, and I'm looking forward to seeing the different poses that people will be able to come up to when these come out.
Yeah. I'm just so keen for him to come out. While you were speaking, I just went back and had a look. We did talk to Eric Arana from Boss Fight Studio back in episode 146, March of 2020. So these things are starting to be a long time in the making. Completely understand, of course, the reasons why, but I'm just itching for these things to arrive. We've been talking about them for so long. I just want Wave 1 to arrive. Bugger 1.5 and Wave 2, whatever. Let's just get some of these little playable figurines, because you might be able to see just behind me on that side is my NECA toy. Very, very hard to see right now. Here he is. I'll bring him forward in classic. He's in Billy Zane mode, fighting. One of my least favourite scenes, but I've been able to recreate it with a little NECA toy. I just can't wait for the Boss Fight Studios figures to come out as well.
There you go, give us a NECA toy. I haven't got one. I haven't got those ones yet.
I haven't opened mine, but so just to recap,
absolutely. If you haven't, do yourself a favour, because they are so fun. I reposition this little guy every time I come down.
So Wave 1's going to be Julie Walker in blue as the Phantom, the 21st Phantom in purple, and then the Phantom with Hero in grey, which is either EY or AY, depending on your location of the country that you live in. Wave 1.5 is going to be the 21st Phantom in blue, and then Julie Walker as the Phantom in red. And then Wave 2.0, which we know a little bit about, is going to be the 11th Phantom in purple. And then there's also going to be a Sing Pirate with multiple heads and gear, So basically, you can buy several and have multiple different looking phantoms or pirates for the phantom to fight with. So they're already planning.
And I look forward to recreating the scene on the deck from the Phantom movie as well, where the Phantom and Sala and Diana were kicking butt. But yeah, just let's go. I want to see them.
Yeah. It is. And talking to Eric, he's as frustrated and looking forward to him as much as us. Because
of course,
we've known about it since what? Well, they've been on the podcast and people have known about it since March 2020.
So pre-pandemic was when we first started.
They've been in the works for a good 2 years before that as well. So, it's by the time it comes out, it's probably going to be a 4 or 5 year project.
Yeah.
So we wish them all the best.
Absolutely. Hermes, they've got some new stock out. The Hermes Complete DC Phantom Collection Volume 2 is out in 2022. Volume 1 should be in stores or is being shipped out soon. I'm not 100% certain on that one, but I don't think they've arrived yet, have they?
No, but there's been... so for those who don't know, basically... There was this amazing image. I'll see if I can include it here to put on the YouTube of America, and there was just this. It looked like a landmass of ships and boats that were waiting to bring stock into the country, but there was no one who could actually unload the ships because of the pandemic and all that. And so, like the stock has been published for a while from Hermes, but they just couldn't get it out. So that's sorted itself out, and they'll be. I believe they're shipping out their orders. So if you've ordered it through Hermes, that's being shipped out. Obviously, if you're doing it via Amazon or your local comic book shop over in Australia or something like that, there might be a little bit more of a delay. But I reckon probably before Christmas, quite easily, we should see.
That's a big call.
We should see the DC one.
The trick is to never say which Christmas, Steve.
2024.
Yeah.
But no, look, we've seen some photos of how they've done it. Some people have showed some preview pictures and stuff, like preview photos and all that. It's an amazing series. So both of the series are amazing. So I'm looking forward to getting these in a nice hardback. I'll be buying a set, definitely. Will you guys be buying one?
Yeah, I will. I haven't. I've picked up, the odd volume from the original series, but the prospect of being able to get them, as you say, in a hardcover trade paperback type style, I'm really looking forward to that and sitting down and reading them properly for the first time.
And we've got some great interviews on our podcast with Mark and Luke, who were the author and writer, or the author and artist of the 13 issue series as well.
Yeah, very good. I'm not sure if I'm going to get it. We'll see. Watch this space. Maybe because I don't have the cash to get it at the moment. Got to pay a few other things off. We talked about Christmas, so Christmas is coming. So diaries and things are now going to be hitting the shelves. So the Melon Diary, there's also not only just a Melon Diary, there's also going to be a print of the front cover. Oh, no, it's a separate print, or is it the print of the front cover?
Print of the front cover.
A print of the front cover, and there's a journal as well. Now, the art for these diaries has been done by Douglas Kluber, correct?
Yep.
The diary is $50. The journal is $40. The journal, of course, doesn't have any dates in it. And the print is $100. There's an order form which we have on our website, and it just, as great as it is to see the diary and the journal and the print and all these comes out, I'd love to see that. Love to see the diary and the journal at least in newsagents. It wasn't that long ago when they were in there, and I don't remember them costing $50 in the newsagents. I could be wrong there.
Yeah, the prices are a little bit more expensive than normal because normally it was what, $20, I believe.
I was thinking 20 to 30.
Yeah,
20 to 30.
Maybe
But
25, yeah.
yeah, it's, I don't know. I really enjoy the cover. Again, if you're on YouTube, there'll be some images of it, of the Phantom. Doug does amazing work. I really like the journal. For me, when they did the journal last time, I actually preferred that over the diary. So I'm looking forward to the journal again. And it's nice to have different images as well. And it's an iconic image of the Phantom swearing on the oath with the Phantom in the background. What's actually interesting is the picture of the diary of the Phantom where he's got his fist like this. That was actually from a sketch cover that someone that I know got. He's got that pose on his sketch cover. Not me. Mine's that one there. That one there is from Doug, where my little finger's waving. But a friend of mine has got that pose on his sketch cover. So he's quite happy that it's been reused for the diary.
I should imagine. And look, I'm a massive fan of Doug Faber and his art, and both of those images for the diary and the journal they just look sensational. And I'll 100% get copies of those just so I can own a print copy of those pictures in and of themselves. The journal, I'll probably. I was just about this is what I use. This is the 2016 Melon journal. Much more boring cover than what we're talking about from Doug Klaber. And you won't be able to see this necessarily, but I've been using this for years for my Chronicle Chamber notes. I'll probably have to get a one that I can keep fresh and one that I can replace because I'm only about 30 or 40 pages from the end of this, not even that. So for practical reasons and for tax write-off purposes, I'll absolutely be getting a Melon journal. And look, the opportunity to get that Doug Klaber print, I think I don't know how I'm going to be able to go past that either. So kudos to Melon for bringing these out. I understand what you're saying about the price increase. It is a thing. But, if we go back to the mid-1990s when these were coming out and we were paying $20, $25, inflation from, we're now talking 25, 30 years ago. You can understand why the price increase is there, I suppose. I agree with your point, Stephen. I'd love to see it in newsagents, but distribution costs as well. And just good on Melon for getting this out in the timely fashion that I know they always want to get their gear out. Last year's diary was delayed for all of the COVID reasons and probably also because the team helping them may have not have kept all of their deadlines when it comes to submitting written essays and that sort of stuff for the 85th anniversary. But obviously that was successful enough for them to realise that, yes, they need to keep producing these things and people want to buy them. And as I say, as we've all said, the Doug Klaber covers will just about sell it all by themselves.
Yeah. So I'm definitely getting the diary and the journal. I'm probably on the fence when it comes to the print. What about you, Stephen?
I'll be looking to the diary and the journal. I'll be after first, and maybe the print. See how we go. Yeah.
Did we say that the order form is available on our website?
I did mention that after I said the prices.
Okay.
But just in case I said it too quickly, you can get the order form for the diary, the journal, the print from our website. You
go to chroniclechamber.com and search for Melon.
Yeah. Norwegian cassette being turned into a CD crowd fund. So I'm not quite sure what the go is here. I've seen a little bit of back and forth on the messages, but I haven't been able to keep up to date with it. What's going on with this, Joe?
All right, so about 40 years ago, back when cassettes were leading technology, so Dan, you would have listened to cassettes in your heyday back then.
He was on the Bakelite Records. What are you talking about?
This is the Australian equivalent of what we're talking about. This is a cassette cast single of Legend of the Phantom as released by the Phantom Club in Australia. You won't be able to see that necessarily. It talks about the track listing. Both sides contain Legend of the Phantom and the Phantom. You just turn it over, it's the same two songs again. So that's kind of the equivalent of what we're talking about now.
Yeah, so back in 1984, the Phantomette Club released kind of like a bunch of songs and mix of songs. So there was 13 tracks altogether. Now, it's kind of like if the Phantom was listening to the radio station in the deep woods. So there's fake commercials, there's news, there's talk, and then there's songs. So it's kind of like, it's a bit of fun. There's 3 specific themed Phantom songs. They are the theme of the Phantom, the boss, and the spirit that walks. And it was around that time Lee Falk actually visited Norway as well. We're actually in the middle of gathering some information and some articles about that trip, which sort of coincided with this. So our Norwegian friend over there, Christian, is gathering some of that together, which we'll put up on the website with a bit of an article as well. But the important information is that they're after a certain amount. Now, if you and if anyone in Australia wants to crowdfund it, that's all well and good, but they won't ship it outside of the Scandinavian countries. However, if it does reach its target, they will be releasing it on their website, which is a Norsk album classic website. So basically classic albums. And then you can get it shipped from their website. So if it meets its target, you'll be able to buy it eventually. So if it does do that, you're probably looking at maybe the second quarter of 2022.
So this is this whole cassette is available on YouTube.
Yes.
Yep. So you can go and check it out there. I've had a bit of a scrub through it, and as someone who is ignorant enough to only understand one language, I'm not following the Norwegian, and so I'm probably not picking up on the stuff. The music's poppy enough, and you can probably have a boogie along to it as you're cleaning dishes in the kitchen or whatever if you like to. But I'm probably not going to be picking up a copy of the CD just because I don't understand. I'll get no benefit really out of listening to it because I don't understand what's going on. What about yourself, Jerm? You probably will, I'm guessing, as our
I've already organised a crowd fund. I'm gonna sign up for the 3. So if we do get it, we're going to try and get one of them to be used as a Patreon prize later on down the track as well. And what we'll do is we'll sign off the podcast with one of the Phantom themed songs as well. So listen to the right to the end of the podcast, and there will be one of the songs on there as well, which I think will be kind of cool for people to have a listen to.
Yeah, good
Go
idea.
onto the website. The whole cassette's on our article in the YouTube as well.
Oh, I better go and check that out. I think that's all for the news. I've just seen the last dot point for the news, but we actually covered that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So I guess there's no further ado but to give our outro so we can all listen to this Phantom track. So thanks for joining us. It's been not quite 2 hours. So for those of you on a long commute, maybe you got to finish this all in one hit. Maybe it took you a couple of days. Either way, thank you for joining myself, Jermayn, and Dan as we talk all things Phantom for the month of October. We hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, send us a message. If you didn't, send us a message. We'd like discussing, and sometimes we like arguing as well. If you've agreed with us, that's great. If you haven't, that's fine too. Okay, so you can always check us out on chroniclechamber.com. We've mentioned that a few times during the podcast. Lots of things on there. Also, email us at chroniclechamber@gmail.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, on Spotify, or via apps like Podbean, Player FM, Castbox, Listen Notes, or check out our wonderful mugs up on YouTube, as well as all the fantastic pictures that Germ does in post. So there's nothing else from me, so happy Phantoming.
Thanks very much, everyone. Happy Phantoming.
Happy Phantometting, and let's take it away for this music.
sjefen. Lag øyeblikkelig et nærradioprogram bestående av musikk, moro og aktuelle ting i tiden. Fantomets nærradio.